Also, if they ask you how long have you been in the business, what do you guys say? How long have you been in the business? I'm your client, and I'm trusting you to help me buy a $300,000 house. How long have you been doing this?
Under 5 years.
Okay, I like that. It's good, less than 5 years. Another answer is, oh man, it seems like forever. And then go on. Oh man, it seems like forever. Now this house has 2,200 square feet and just go right on. Right? You haven't told them any lies. And you haven't really answered their question at all. That's kind of, that's one that worked really well for me when I was new, for what it's worth. Dialogues. Lead people to the conclusions that they need to come to. I've had people that come to me and they want to buy a house. They got a family, they want to buy a house, they know they need to buy a house. I can see it and it's a slam dunk thing. Renting's no good for them, they need the tax break. The whole thing is right there. It's obvious as can be, but they have a lot of apprehension. They're not sure about this, and they're not sure about that, and they're not sure about the other, and they're not sure that maybe they shouldn't make decisions right now because in 2 years something's going to happen with somebody going to college, about all that kind of stuff that happens. That's a reality that we kind of deal with, and we have to be able to lead them to the conclusions that we come to. For instance, if they're giving me objections like, well, my son graduates high school in 2 years, and then we really need to move right now, but this thing or whatever, I'm going to look at that and say, well, he graduates in 2 years, but aren't there some other solutions? He could just move schools. People do that. Or maybe you guys have some really close family friends or even a relative or something here in the neighborhood where he could stay for that year or two, or you could utilize their address so he can go to that school or whatever. Let me find the solutions to those kind of problems, because we need to lead them to the conclusions that they want to come to. Sometimes they really, really do need to get out of their own way. Those people with the roof, I showed them on 11 times and they never bought. I tried to lead them to the conclusion that I had already come to, which is this is a slam dunk. And that this is, and the roof isn't that big of a deal. The roof is not that big of a deal, right? It's not like a foundation problem. They're shingles, they're not that big of a deal. So we need to be able to bring them around to that now, and maybe they're not sure if they need to buy at all. Man, I don't know if we should buy right now. Or, okay, Mr. Prospect, you're not sure if you want to buy right now or not. What's your family situation? What's your rental situation? How do you think your tax liability would change if you were a homeowner, and what would that do to your monthly finances? What's your future like? Are you planning to stay at your job for a while? Yeah, I've been at this job for 5 years. I'm going to be there, whatever, indefinitely. Well, then maybe we need to talk about it. Now, on the other hand, if they say, yeah, I'm leaving Denver in 6 months, they don't need to come to the conclusion that they should buy. They don't, right? But if they do need to buy, then we need to help them come back around to it, because sometimes they'll sit there and talk themselves out of it the whole time. And I don't know if it's a safety feature that people have or something like that, but a lot of people call it paralysis by analysis, as they say, or whatever, but at some point we need to stop looking at all the different angles or whatever, and we need to start making some decisions. And you need to help the buyer get to that place if they're not there. Preempt the objections. If you know they're going to object about this or that, speak to it before you ever get in the car, right? Or before we even list the house, or even when you're on the phone call setting up the appointment. Or while you're taking notes, remember going around their house. Mention those stories about overpriced people and how bad things went for them or whatever. Those kind of things are, the more you can preempt it, the less they'll pop up to begin with. Your deals will get smoother. The better you are at this kind of stuff, because you know the kind of, and you're going to get, especially after a few closings, you know the kind of stuff that they're worried about, buyers and sellers both. You start speaking to that stuff preemptively before they even get a chance to speak up and realize that they even have that objection. Before the idea even pops into their head, you blow it out of the sky. And the better you get at that, the more you will close and close and close. You might be not so good at it and still be able to close some stuff, but it does take away from your efficiency. You won't convert as much, or your buyers will be more difficult, or you'll have to show them more times before you can put them under contract because you didn't do that good job of a job explaining the choice stuff. And so even if you're able to close today, the better you get with this stuff, the more efficient it makes it. Ask questions to engage and gain insight. I want to know about stuff because sometimes they'll tell you stuff that will inform you all kinds of different things. That you're like, wow, okay. And sometimes it'll even let you know whether or not these are somebody you can close at all. That is a huge thing that us as brokers need to determine as quickly as possible. From the moment you have a first contact and exchange the first few words with somebody, you need to try and zero it in on, is this somebody that can close? Just in general. do they qualify for a loan, or can they sell, you know, and they own the place and they can afford to sell it, stuff like that, because if they're not somebody that you can get to the closing table, you need to take that into consideration and not spend too much energy on it. Put them in your sphere, put them in your drip campaign, whatever you want to do there, but if you go spending too much time showing property to people that don't close, you're out of business. You cannot pay your bills that way, right? And that's why we have to help them get to that place. Let's cut the crap and get down to doing business on the thing. That's what we're here to do. We're doing real estate business. We're not looking at houses. We're not looking on the internet, stuff like that. We're closing property, and we're helping bring buyers and sellers together, having those conversations with them, asking and conducting negotiations and getting the stuff to the closing table. That's what we do in real estate. So you want to determine that as quickly as you can, and as you ask those questions, you will gain insight, and it also will help as you have those dialogues with them for them to realize your value. Like when they realize the stuff that you know that they didn't even realize that they didn't know, now they're starting to realize, oh my gosh, thank goodness we have this guy, right? Or thank goodness we have this gal working for us here that, you know, we didn't even realize this or that. We didn't realize that she could show us for sale by owner homes, or we didn't realize that she could go, she could show Colorado Springs, or, you know, all these different things, or we did not realize all of the pitfalls and stuff like that. Most buyers do not know of the pitfalls there. I don't want to tell them about it to scare them out of the thing or whatever. I want to tell them about it in such a way that they understand. Don't worry about it. People buy houses all the time. It's okay. It's just you should respect those problems and those situations and prospective snags well enough, and understand that how close to the door they usually are to know that you need a professional. Respect those things. Like if you have let's say you're working in a deli, they got that big slicer. That's a scary machine. It'll take your hand clean off. But you don't need to never use the machine. But if you respect it, then you can approach it properly, right? And so Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, respect the problems that can potentially happen right there, and deal with them in such a manner. Let's respect them well enough to get a broker to help you protect from them. Because if you don't have a broker and you're not worried about being protected from all the pitfalls or whatever, you're not respecting their power to kick your butt. They can do that. They can take your money and everything else. Okay. Slide to this. Hey, we're doing good, you guys. Doing good on time and everything. Hope I'm not going too fast. Okay. Situations and preparation. What situations are you headed for? Are you going into a listing appointment today? Are you going to be showing houses today? Are you going to an open house today? Whatever it is. Are you sitting floor today? Whatever it is. What does your day hold? What kind of dialogues do you need to be aware of? What kind of junk is your average prospective client going to throw up in your face today? And be aware of it right up front. They're going to ask you this, they're going to ask you that. So if you start your day and put yourself in that mindset and ask yourself those things, what kind of situations do I need to be ready for? Here's another thing, and I want you guys to think about this, like for to ask your mentor and stuff. I don't know if we can do a whole lot of it here, but what objections are you concerned about? What kind of stuff are you, each of you individually, concerned that you're going to go have an interaction with a prospect and they're going to say something and you're not going to know what to do? What is it? To have that conversation with your mentor. Because your mentor is going to have the answers. Here's what to do. You say this and you say that, and tell them, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff. Do that, and then, you know what? If you got 10 different things you can think of, do it. And they'll have answers for each of those 10. Maybe write them down, maybe take some notes. If you like role playing, you can do that, or you could try it out on the floor. Right? We got floor calls, you can swing it on there and see how you do. If you want, you can even have your mentor, hang out with you and do a mock call or call a prospect or something like that, and have them sitting there in the room. So once you get off the phone, they can critique you. Put the client on speaker and let your mentor hear the whole thing if you want to. There's a lot of things that you can do like that if you feel like you need to get stronger in this area. In the end, this isn't rocket science what we're doing. It's buying and selling real estate's not that complicated, but it's complicated enough that we want to know those little angles there as much as possible. Discuss different scenarios and how objections might be handled. For instance, I had one time where I was training, and I was under this guy who was a top agent in the state. He was real good. And I went on this listing appointment. It was kind of an average lower end house, and we sat down at the kitchen table, and he's explaining to him, here's what we're going to do. He's blowing right through the listing. Here's my presentation. Here's my stuff here. You can tell he's expecting signatures. He's not glossing over too much, but he's just not worried about it at all. And so he finishes that. He kind of goes over the listing agreement, puts it in front of them. They've got pens in their hands. And he said, just go ahead and, you know, sign here and we'll get going. And you just sit there like that because they weren't signing. They weren't signing, and he didn't want to break the silence. So he said, you know, he dropped it on him, you know, just go ahead and sign right here and we'll get it going. Sit there. And finally his wife said, just sign the damn thing. And he listed. He listed, and that worked, even though the commission was 7% and there was a $395 junk fee on it too. And the guy signed that. That kind of stuff works. What kind of scenarios are you going to run into though? Are you going to be able to, what if they say, you've come for the listing, you know they need to list, you've done your thing there, and it's time to ask for the signature, and they're stonewalling you. First of all, later on you're going to want to ask yourself, what did I miss? Right? Because if they're stonewalling me, I didn't cover something. They didn't understand my value as thoroughly as they needed to, or they didn't understand something, or maybe I angered them in some way, or whatever. I don't worry about it too much as far as the negative side of things, but I always want to know why didn't that work? You know, what happened? But those are things where those kind of techniques can help you a lot, I think, and I just want to encourage you guys to develop yourself in those ways. Understand that there are specific techniques to overcoming objections, awkward silences. It's a tool. It makes me super uncomfortable. I was so uncomfortable that night. I knew well enough not to say anything, though. I was just like, I was new, come on. Okay, but that's, you know, I really want to encourage you guys there, and the other thing is to be bold. Don't be afraid to say the stuff you need to say. Because there's a huge percentage of brokers that wipe out in their first few years and don't really get anywhere, and I think that this is the reason why. I think that you have to have the guts to really be able to bring it, to be able to really talk turkey with people, to really get down to the brass tacks and everything, and I want that to be for you guys. So, let's see. Know one way to do this. Results are the bottom line, aren't they? If you're doing the hard sale and you're breaking every rule that I just told you, but you're closing all the property you want, rock on. Great. No argument except a high five. I got nothing for you. But results are where it's at. So if you're getting calls, lead calls, and you're not able to turn those into appointments very well, you got a results problem. And it doesn't matter what you're saying or not saying, it's not working, right? So pay attention to the results and keep your eye on the results. It's not how you feel. It's not what kind of day you're having. It's not whether or not that was a good lead now or a bad call or you train wrecked it or whatever. The results is everything. So if you didn't get a result today, you get up tomorrow, strap your shoes on, and go chase that result. That's all we can do. You know, don't worry too much about the stuff that didn't go right. I've had calls that bothered me so bad I can still remember them. I got to tell you. It really bothers me because I want to do good, I want to do right, and I believe you guys are generally like that too, right? You want to really do it right, you don't want to be bungling it, and you want to do a quality job. And the more you do this kind of stuff, rehearse the stuff in your brain, read it and read it and read it, say the stuff out loud if you need to, have role play with your mentor, role play with each other if you need to. Go and have some coffee once we're done here and work on this stuff. Whatever it is that you need to do, so that when you're on an appointment and people start dropping this stuff on you, you're like, oh yeah, this, that, and the other. You got all this stuff. You know the answer. I've got 3 or 4 different ways off the top of my head that I can blow out objections about the seller wants to overprice his listing. And I'm here to tell you too that if none of that stuff works, I'm going to let the guy know that I'm going to walk, and he can waste my competition's resources for a while. And after he does that, maybe he can call me because I was the guy that told him the truth, and I'll get his house sold. Right? That's the kind of stuff that you can do right there. And you know what? If you're not going to get them anyway, then there's no harm in letting them know. There's no harm in talking straight, especially if you're already toast. And sometimes talking straight will actually save the deal. And people want straight talk in this business too. They really, really want straight talk. Yeah, this is all I got here. Learn these. Your competition has. Brokers that have been doing this 20 years know this inside and out, back of their hand. There's other brokers that have not been doing it very long at all. And they know it too because they are studying it. You need to be studying with them or you're at a disadvantage and you might be a part of that percentage that didn't make it. And I don't want that for anybody here. And if you're not where you need to be or your conversion's not where it needs to be, I want you to really think about this. So like I said, MikeBerry.com is a place where there's tons of scripts and dialogues. There's other places where you can find that. There's a website called Active Rain. It's like a realtor website. They got a bunch of blogs and people on there just talking about different stuff. I think you got to pay if you want to be one of the bloggers on there. There's some monthly subscription, but you don't need to pay to read some of the content. But you can even search on there for scripts, dialogues, overcoming objections, things like that, and see what you can find. The other thing I want to tell you, you've got to be polished right here. I know what I'm talking about. I can go out on a listing right here, and I've got all this stuff to say, and I don't even have to think about it because I've done it a bunch of times, and I learn mostly by repetition, not because I'm a genius. I just do it over and over until I can't help but to remember it. And so whatever it takes for you there, polish. Be squared away. Know the stuff to talk about. And the other thing is that you need to be aware or acquainted with how houses work physically. Where's the water main? What's it do? You know what I mean? Where does the cable and utilities come into the house? What's the difference between the furnace and electric baseboard or whatever? That's a pretty obvious one, but you be aware of those kind of things too, so that when you're going through, for instance, on a listing appointment, you can speak to some of those things a little bit. Or like bedrooms. Mr. and Mrs. Seller asks you, well, we've got this bedroom in the basement, but it's got a window, but it's not that big of a window. And you can explain to them, because you know, that this is a non-conforming bedroom. It does not conform to current codes, but we can still call it a bedroom, and we'll put it in the remarks as a non-conforming bedroom, and it'll work, and it'll be fine. We're in disclosure, it's all good. But we should mark that as a bedroom, because there's a lot of people that would, that's going to make a difference. For instance, if that's the 4th bedroom, and otherwise we got to market it as a 3-bedroom, we're going to miss everybody that's looking for a 4-bedroom house. And we have a 4th bedroom, right? So those are things that we want to be aware of when it comes to that. This one here, these last two, abandon fear and get sharp. There's no place for fear in this stuff. Your competition, the other broker they're talking to, he's not afraid. And so we can't be afraid either. Don't be afraid to talk straight with them. Don't be afraid to let them know that we need to meet. Don't be afraid to let them know that this is serious stuff and that you're having a good time doing it, but you take good care of people that are really your people and things like that. And the other thing is be sharp, and I think it ties into being in the office or being around your colleagues and stuff like that, so that you're in a real estate frame of mind. If you just got done watching a movie and you're suddenly on on a lead call, a hot call, your head's not in the right place. And a lot of us work from home and everything, and that's cool, but if you're all doing a bunch of laundry and everything, and you suddenly need to be a real estate person, and you haven't even done your real estate that day. You just woke up, you had some coffee, you're kind of fiddling around with your laundry and check your email a little bit or whatever, and then boom, there's this hot call, and your head's not in the right place for that kind of stuff. So I want to encourage you with that to really pay attention. Is it 2:56? Holy smokes. Well, my time, I have 2 different clocks here, and one of them says 2:29, but that's how long I've been talking, 2.5 minutes. I'm going to let you go now. I really appreciate you guys being here in the class. Talk to